What's up, everybody out there? We are live, Into the Ring live for a Sunday, December the 6th, with Mighty Mike.
AJ Rage.
And joining us, special guest from Portland or Gresham, Oregon.
Eric Mindiola, the other brother.
Eric the Red.
Eric the Red. Actually, hold on. If it's going to be Eric the Red, I'm going to have to do that.
For those of you that don't know what the intro of that song was, first off, shame on you. Second off, that is a little song called Hail to the King by a band called Avenged Sevenfold, right here from Newport Beach, California.
Absolutely.
And in honor of the king of the welterweight division, Errol Spence, we wanted to start the show with that little intro to that song. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing good, bro. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
For people that don't know, we're three brothers right here. Full-blooded brothers. No half brothers here. We all got the same last name.
Same mom, same dad. As far as we know.
Best buddies for life. And there's one thing that's always been embedded in our blood our entire life is boxing.
Boxing.
And that's why we are here.
Boxing, football, now boxing primarily.
We grew up boxing. We grew up having to fight our cousins in the front yard and the backyard. We know boxing.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah. How many people out there? Dad used to stay back on Sundays when mommy went to go put a couple bucks in the church basket and stuff with the aunts and stuff, and got matched up against his cousins, and we were treated like racehorses,
and uncles and everything else.
You name it, man. You name it. But you know what though? It taught us a lot in life. It taught us about the sport and how to appreciate the sport. And I'll tell you something right now. There's a lot of people out there that have an opinion about boxing and stuff, but until you've been punched in the face 1,000 times, keep your mouth shut.
That's right. Angel Garcia said it this week in an interview. He ain't never been punched in the tip of the nose. These guys that sit behind desks and computer screens and talk, hey, it's easy to talk.
Yeah, and we're seeing that more and more and more. So one of the things that we like to do right before we get into, obviously, all hail the king, who is
Errol Spence Jr.
Welcome back, Errol Spence Jr. in a big way. I mean, I got to say, honestly, for myself, and I'm going to be a bit of a talker today because my brother knows I've followed Errol Spence's career all the way up until he was an amateur. And I said it when he was coming in. He's something special. And for Errol to go through what he went through, this tragic, horrific car accident that he was put in. He was propelled from the car, from his Ferrari. You see the video of it. He was completely unconscious. For him to come back and take on a formidable opponent in a Danny Swift Garcia, two-time world champion, shows the type of talent that Errol Spence truly is. Agreed.
And I'm I try not to pay too much attention to what people in the comment section say, especially in any of these boxing outlets. But a lot of people are now trying to dismiss Danny Garcia as like, well, Danny, didn't really have a chance in this fight. That's bullshit. Danny Garcia is a legitimate top 5 welterweight. We've been saying that for as long as we've been doing this show. We didn't jump on the Garcia bandwagon because the fight with Errol Spence was signed. He's a legitimate top 5 welterweight. I mean, all you got to do is look at the guy's record. Yeah, he came up short against, in my opinion, the 3 of the 5 best welterweights in the world. Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, and now Errol Spence.
Absolutely, bro. So, and anybody that's going to dismiss somebody like Danny Garcia, it just shows you their lack of boxing knowledge. Yeah, rather than praise Errol Spence for the remarkable thing that he did, that no other champion I know right now in this game of boxing would do. Would Terrence Crawford do that? Hell no. Anybody else? No. Errol Spence came from that accident, woke up, fixed his wounds, got back, spent a little bit of time with his family, did some probably reflecting, got back into the gym, got himself back, and guess what? Yesterday, Errol Spence showed the world who the best welterweight in the world is.
And there's not a fighter alive that goes into the boxing match thinking he's going to lose or wanting to lose. Danny Garcia gave his best, did his best. Errol was just way too seasoned. He just outperformed and outboxed Danny Garcia. That's all there is to it.
That's a great point, Errol. Well said. Very well said.
That's right. Everybody goes in that ring thinking that, you don't go into a ring thinking you're going to lose. I mean, I don't care who you are. You go into, especially at the world level. I'm not talking about, journeyman fighters or guys that are in there for their paycheck. And that's happened over the years. But a guy like Danny Garcia was not there to collect a paycheck. He was there to win that fight. unfortunately for him, Errol Spence's work rate, he just blunted Danny Garcia's offense. It seems like that jab was doing a number on the eye, and it wasn't like a hard, like it wasn't the Joe-Joyce jab that we saw a week ago, that stiff, but it was just enough just to thwart and just blunt Danny's offense, especially, bro, the left hook. It was almost non-existent in the fight.
Oh yeah,
he blunted that left hook.
He completely shut down Danny in so many ways. And one of the things I saw that was I'm not gonna say disturbing, but is just a credit to Errol Spence's overall talent, is the fact that he was able to contain Danny Garcia and make Danny second guess himself. Something you don't see anybody doing. Danny's always had a chip on his shoulder. He showed it. He exhibited it in both of his losses against both Sean Porter and Keith Thurman. At the very end of the fight, Danny kind of showed a flash of that. You see, Danny, I mean, he's a tough guy, but for some reason, Errol was just able to read Danny in all angles and able to just make Danny second guess himself the entire fight.
Good, well said.
Yep. And Eric, okay, so we all obviously we're talking, you know, pre-fight, during the fight, and post-fight. We all like to score the fights. And in fact, Eric, me and you scored. Just so you know, out there, I had the fight 117-111 for Spence. And I said before the fight, we both predicted AJ. I had said if Spence was going to win, it'll be on a close unanimous. And even though it was 117-111, a lot of those rounds were still pretty close. So depending on the judges, you know, two of the judges had it 116-112. One judge had it 117-111. Boxing scene, which is notoriously, they are atrocious when it comes to scoring fights.
What happened to them?
I don't know who is in charge of scoring for boxing scene. They had a 119-109. That is
somebody with only one eye.
Yeah,
boxing scene. There's a guy over there going.
Yeah,
it sounds like the judges from the Lomachenko Lopez fight.
But either way, though, me and Eric and my brother Eric, we agreed, because we were talking after the fight. We agreed on every single round. I think we both gave Danny clearly the 5th, the 9th, and the 10th. We almost gave him the second round.
Almost gave him the second.
Yeah, even though on CompuBox stats, it said that Danny landed one more punch than Errol. I thought maybe CompuBox kind of got that round wrong, because I saw Errol win that round by just a hair. But if you wanted to give Danny that round, I mean, it's very clear. I haven't seen the official scorecards, but it's very clear they might have given Danny that second round, hence the 116-112. But 116-112, 117-111, that was, I think, a fair assessment of the fight. 8 rounds to 4, 9 rounds to 3. Congrats to Errol Spence, the best welterweight in the world, bar none.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much more you could say other than the fact that Errol, you know, to hear the guy after the fight, and
he's gracious.
Just basically talk about how, you know, he wants to go back and he wants to spend some time with his family, raise his horses and raise his chickens. You know, he's a good old boy from Texas, and a lot of people forget that. You know, he doesn't got that rap city mentality and stuff. But the thing is that he said it from the get-go. I admired Danny Garcia ever since I was an amateur, and I watched him coming up. I took this fight to challenge myself. And Errol said, you know, and the scary thing about it is I believe about 99.9% of the stuff that comes out of Errol Spence's mouth. And that's a big quality, because when Errol
Especially for boxers.
Absolutely. So when Errol Spence says, I still got a lot of rust to shake off, because they asked him, you know, did you make any mistakes up? And he said, well, you know, I started kind of clowning a little bit. And at that point, you know, his trainer told him, you know, hey, listen, don't play with Danny Garcia. You play with Danny Garcia, you get knocked out. You know, so it came back. But to think that Errol Spence was still a little rusty, wow, does it put a statement on the welterweight division?
Because Danny Garcia had fought. I mean, you know, the pandemic, of course, affected him, but Danny, in the course of Errol's last fight, from them till now, I think Danny had 2 fights. Am I right? He had the Granados fight and the Ivan Redcatch fight. Redcatch fight, yeah. So and those are not two. Those are not 2 handpicked opponents. Those are both good quality fighters. Redcatch was coming off of the big win over Devin Alexander. Granados was, I mean, coming off of every fight he's in, he's right in that fight, no matter who he is. So, you know, I mean, there's so much more we could say about it.
One of the things that I'm sorry.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
One of the things that I noticed or I liked is when on the post fight, when Errol was talking, he actually was talking Garcia up. You know, he was helping. So hopefully later on, he's going to get better fights and more fights, because it was a good fight. But when you get the commentator saying, oh, well, it was too easy for you, or whatever the case may be, and him actually standing up for his opponent was actually kind of nice to see that. You know,
It's like I said, once again, it's one of those things where who said it was easy? There's nothing easy about stepping into a boxing ring at the world level. I don't give a shit if you're just a guy sparring at the gym. There's nothing easy about that. If you think it's easy, get in there and try to do it.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things too that Errol did that was so remarkable is I know there was a lot of comparison to Errol's style against Sean Porter in his last fight prior to his accident, and then his style last night. Let me tell you something right now, just on an educated aspect. I went back and I watched the Errol Spence Sean Porter fight last night, and I'm going to tell you something right now. Errol Spence fought better against Danny Garcia. He didn't make the mistakes that he made in the Sean Porter fight. It didn't matter that Sean Porter was more aggressive and then he came in reckless. It didn't matter. It was the way Errol conducted himself, his composure, his punch output, his angles, his aggression, and his punching power were better. So Errol Spence worked on things that he needed to repair. He didn't just want to come back. He wanted to come back a better version of Errol Spence.
And he fought at levels. When I say levels, I mean he was coming upstairs to the head, the jab, but he was coming down to the body, shooting the straight left to the body, shooting the right hook to the body. I mean, it seemed like when he fought Porter, I mean, he was doing a lot of head hunting. You know what I mean? A lot of head hunting with, on Sean. Whereas this one, he fought in levels. But
you agree, Eric?
I agree, 100%.
And I tell you, like I said, I mean,
so
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying. I think Errol did exactly what he had to do, and I think he put a statement out there. And I know there was a lot of fighters in there at the fight. I know one in particular, one that they gave a lot of camera time to, was Bud-Crawford.
And they booed the shit out of him and tell us,
because it's going to get right back to the same thing again. I mean, what are the chances they're going to fight? I'll tell you now, Errol wants him anytime. Okay, Bud-Crawford, if this thing goes through where he goes to the PBC, whatever, he may get fed Errol Spence. But I'm telling you now, based on what I saw last night with Errol Spence, and if that's still a rusty Errol Spence, I would reconsider a matchup, Bud-Crawford.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, but once again, it's going to come down to Terrence Crawford being realistic. He's talking about 60-40 split in his favor. I saw some people saying, based off of that performance last night, it should be 70-30 for Errol. I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, people could say what they want about, well, Danny kind of comes up short in these big fights or whatever. But, you can't say that because Danny's fought in big fights. He's fought Amir Khan. He's fought Lucas Matisse. He's won big fights. He's fought Paulie Malignaggi, who's a slick boxer. He's come up big in big fights as a main event. 2 times at the Barclays Center, they sold it out. So this is not a guy that, is getting thrust into the limelight and he just comes up short. You know what I mean? Because some fighters will do that. Some fighters, the moment's too big for them. The moment was not too big for Danny Garcia. He just simply ran into a guy.
Yeah, that was just better.
That a guy right now, in my opinion, I think Errol solidified himself, maybe even moved up a notch or two in that pound for pound, the mythical pound for pound ratings. Because I know a couple weeks ago we talked about that, and I think we both had Errol right around 5 or 6. Hey, he very well could propel himself into the top 3 based off of this win. Now, if one of the other guys that we had initially ahead of him come back in the early part of 2021 and win a big fight, well, then maybe these guys are going to continue to jockey for position. It's like a horse race. But right now, you got to say, hey, Errol Spence he's the unified champion. He's got multiple world champions on his resume that he's beaten, and then the manner in which he's beating them. I mean,
absolutely.
I'd like to see Danny and Crawford.
Yeah, I agree with you, bro. And I'll tell you something right now, Eric. Danny Garcia, anybody who's going to give up on Danny Garcia, turn the page on Danny Garcia is making a huge mistake, because I'm going to tell you right now, Danny had all the ability to still be more successful in that fight. For some reason, Danny held himself back for some reason. And I think that is just a testament to the talent that Errol Spence is, to make a fighter like Danny question himself and put himself in a possible one-world position. But you look back, if Danny wanted to, Danny could easily still make, the junior welterweight division. It's not a problem for Danny Garcia.
Yeah, I think he can make 140. I really do.
Well, the thing is, you look at the guys at 140 right now, Bud-Crawford's out of there and stuff. Guys like Sean, like Taylor and Ramirez and these other ones. I'm going to tell you something right now. With the exception of Jones Zepeda, Danny clears them all out.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a fight with Danny Garcia and Regis Prograis at 140. Even a catchweight at 142. Man, that's because Regis is now with the PBC. He's no longer fighting on ESPN. That's a fight that could very well be made, and that could be, it's not a situation where they would feed Danny to Regis, because that is still, honestly, you probably have to still favor Danny Garcia in that fight because he's one more proven. I mean, Regis is a former world champion, lost a close decision to Taylor. But I was actually going to touch on that. Where does Danny Garcia go from here? I think we kind of just jumped into it. There's options for Danny Garcia,
There's a ton of options for Danny Garcia. And like I said, I know Danny's going to probably go back and speak with his dad, and they'll figure it out. But why don't we go ahead and move on from there? So once again, congratulations to Errol Spence Jr. Welcome back, champ. We're so proud of you. But let's talk about another person who was that I know really, really got you interested about him, and he's only gotten better and better. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and introduce this person, Mike.
Are we talking about the towering inferno, 6'6", Sebastian Fundora? And I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to pat us on the back a little bit because I believe that you and I were the only one that were even discussing this kid prior to this weekend's fight card. Nobody was talking to the kid. He was getting very few interviews pre-fight, but all of a sudden now people want to jump on the bandwagon and be like, wow, look at this. Because like you said, I saw a sizable improvement from his last fight to this fight. And he wasn't fighting a stiff. He was fighting a guy that had, I think, one loss on his record, but
it is one loss on his record. If I believe so, came against, I can't remember what it is, but it was a top guy, and he got stopped in the 6th round. I mean, he was no competition against the towering inferno of Fundora.
Eric, what did you think of Fundora? Was this your first time seeing him fight?
Actually, it was, and yeah, I think he's still a young kid. He's got a lot to learn, but he's powerful. The kid's powerful.
And AJ's
those long arms. It's like taking. Do you want to hit the head of a nail with a short hammer or a long hammer? Those arms, as long as they are, and coming from left field, yeah, you want to watch out for those.
And the way he was sitting down on his punches, and you actually heard and felt those punches through the TV screen. You're like, damn, he is really letting, and AJ, you said something to me after the fight we talked. You're like, what if this kid develops like really starts utilizing a jab, which he uses a jab as a rangefinder, but he's not really popping that jab out there. Could you imagine if this guy gets a jab like a Mark Breland type jab, Tommy Hearns type jab, George Foreman type jab?
It'll be like
touch the guy.
Not only that, I mean, it's obviously not just the jab. I mean, just the fact that at 6'6", if they taught Fundora how to fight tall, he could use his height as a rangefinder on these smaller opponents, which is pretty much everybody in boxing, with the exception of a couple guys in the heavyweight division and very few. And the thing is that at that point, once he's kind of broken them down and taken away all their weapons that they have, getting back into the ropes, Fundora's shown that he has the ability to get in close and fight, with his infighting very successfully.
That's hard to imagine too, because as tall as he is still able to get in there close, and that is just it's an anomaly. It is.
Great point, Eric. It really is. And like I said, I mean, he didn't fight some slouch last night. A matter of fact, his original opponent, which was Cota, was a former victim of Jermell Charlo. And the thing is that the guy got stopped. I believe it was the 2nd round or something, but the point was that guy, actually, I don't think was as tough as this guy. This guy to me was actually the kind of guy that you don't want to, plus the fact being from Ghana, I mean, these guys are just,
and he was 6 foot tall.
6'2".
6'2", but he looked like, just an average size a junior middleweight, and he wasn't. He's tall for that division. I think the Charlo comes in at 5'11", I think 5'11 and a half.
5'11.
Most of the guys in that, anywhere from 5'9" to 6 foot tall. Tony Harrison's tall for that division. No, I'm sorry. Tony Harrison fights at 160. That's my mistake.
Yeah.
But he was a tall kid, and he couldn't get in on Fundora.
No, not at all. And I think one of the things that was really impressive too was watching they did some great screen angles during the fight, during the pay-per-view event. That was actually run really well. And they did a screen angle when they were doing the post-fight talk with Fundora, and they switched it over to Charlo. And Charlo kind of had this look like, nah. And I thought to myself, okay, listen, don't go down that road right now. The kid, I'm not saying the kid's ready at this point, but once again, I'm going to say it. He's a kid, and he's still growing and maturing. He's like this, but I'm going to tell you right now, he showed that he's everything that his moniker is. He is fiery in the ring, and he is a freaking inferno. Because that kid
he just
towers over everybody. I mean, it's freakish, what he does at his size.
I mean, being 22 years old, I can't imagine he'll be able to continue to make 154 for.
They say he makes it easily.
No, I'm saying in a couple years, you know what I'm saying? By the time he's 23, 24, maybe he goes up to 160. But who at 160 is anywhere near that height? There's nobody near that
I
height.
think the kid's got a tapeworm or something. I don't know how the hell he does that, dude.
He might have a tapeworm.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about that and stuff like this. Like I said, I mean, congratulations to Sebastian Pandora. If you don't know who he is, go to YouTube, type in his name, Sebastian, the Towering Inferno. I'm sorry, my brain. I'm tired today.
Yeah,
Pandora, an amazing young fighter out of Coachella Valley.
Yeah, and I think I was telling you on the phone, I saw Ben Lira in his corner. I don't remember if Ben Lira has been in his corner previously. He may have been, but Ben Lira he's a second set of eyes there. And if anybody knows anything about Ben Lira, Ben Lira is one of those trainers that he's kind of like, he kind of gets overlooked. He develops a lot of prospects, a lot of kids from the amateurs, brings them up, gets them started, and then sometimes these guys will bounce to what they consider maybe a more accomplished trainer, somebody who don't have travel restrictions. Because Ben Lira, he's older, but I've spoken to him several times at the gym, and he's brought a lot of great fighters. One of them in particular is Luis Feliciano, who fights, I believe, at 140, 147. He's a very, very savvy boxing trainer and just a brilliant guy. He's trained everybody from Jojo Diaz to John Molina to, like I said, now Fundora, several other champions. And that's only going to make that kid better. Yeah. Having that, like I said, that other set of eyes in there,
Absolutely. Eric, what was your overall impression of Pandora to see a freakish 6'6" string bean? And we're not talking about a Manute Bol thing here where he's so unorthodox. This kid's got talent.
Yeah, no, he definitely has talent. This being the first time I've actually seen one of his fights, I was impressed. I think personally, they stopped it just a hair too early. I think they, but then again, the other guy, he couldn't get in. He couldn't do anything against Fundora. So yeah. maybe they were right in stopping it. Yeah, it's like trying to fight a brick wall. The brick wall's gonna win.
Yeah,
great. That's a great point. Well, it's funny because you got that fight where they stopped the fight a little fast, and then you got the other fight, with I'm trying to remember.
Josecito Lopez and Santana.
Yeah, and I mean, that fight should have been stopped.
That should have been stopped mid-8th round, or at the very least, the beginning of the 9th round.
I mean, you got to take your hat off. You got to take your hat off to Santana. I mean, he came there to fight. He's a tough guy.
He did.
Yeah, he's a kid. He's a guy. He's a Southern Cal boy. But the thing is, I mean, I'm not saying that I was overly impressed with what Josecito did, because I'll go back to the John Molina fight. Even though he got that victory over John Molina, whenever John kind of let that hand go, Josecito kind of went into another dimension, and he did it again against Santana. And Santana is a good puncher, but he's not a John Molina level puncher. So that's kind of showing me a little bit of a teetering style on Josecito, where maybe his best days might be behind him.
Yeah, I mean, he did get clipped, and I think it was the end of that first round. I think after he had hurt and dropped Santana, right? Did he drop him? Yeah. He did. He dropped him. It wasn't a devastating knock, but he did end up getting caught with something. And and we said this before the fight. I think we were talking about where does Josecito go, even if he wins this fight and looks impressive. I mean, they're talking about, there's this fight out there, this fight out there, this fight out there. But, he's a guy that's got to get back in line. I mean, this was an impressive win. Congrats to him. He's got a great story, the Riverside Rocky. He seems to kind of revived his career. But there are so many guys in that division that are just way more deserving of a big fight right now. I mean, like I said, off the top of my head, I can name 6-7 guys off the top of my head that have fought better opponents that are just kind of laying in wait for their shot. Lipinets, Ugas, Jamal James, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, and then there's a couple more 147-pound guys that are with the PBC that are coming up as well. So,
yeah, you make a great point right there, bro. And the thing is that in the situation with Josecito, the Riverside Rocky, don't get me wrong, he's a guy like a John Molina, like so many others, that really brings everything to each one of his fights.
Yeah,
he's ready to live or die in that ring. But the problem is that, once again, kind of like in Danny Garcia, but at a much lower level. I don't want to compare him to Danny Garcia right now, but in his challenges against guys like Canelo-Alverez, against Marcos Maidana, he's come up short in these fights. So in order to give him these opportunities right now in the welterweight division would kind of have to be a little stale. And right now it's not.
It's not, no.
Being back, Manny Pacquiao's lurking out there in the shadows. You got Keith Thurman, who's biting at the bit. You got Sean Porter, whose ass is hurting because he's sitting on that thing. He wants to get in there and rock him, sock him and stuff. So, and then you got this thrust of young guys that are coming up. So there's a lot of excitement within the welterweight division. That's always been one of the more excitable divisions in boxing.
And like you said, I mean, PBC pretty much can just mix match and have a round robin with these guys for the next several years and be entertaining, competitive fights. Hence, not to regress, but going back to Crawford, I mean, like I said, you're not just going to jump ahead of the line here and be like, hey, I'm the man. Because why are you the man? Well, because Andre Ward and Tim Bradley said so. Al Heyman would be like, sorry, man. I mean, I got my guys that have helped me develop and build, you build this division and build this product, which is the PBC. And I think at the end of the day, Al Heyman's going to show loyalty to his guys. He's going to make Terrence Crawford prove himself. Get him in there.
I'll tell you right now, I was thinking about the other day, bro, when you told me that, and I thought who would be a perfect opponent for Bud Crawford coming in. To kind of like his introduction, his welcome to the PBC, and here's a legit welterweight coming in. How about, obviously I don't see him biting at Jamal James, but what about Jesse Vargas?
Yeah, well, Jesse Vargas, I believe, is gonna go back to 154, but I mean, that would be interesting. I would probably guess that over the years they probably even spent some time sparring, because when I know Bud Crawford did spend some time training in Vegas for a while, Jesse's there in Vegas.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have heard that Jesse's going to go back to 154. I think 147. I think him coming back down to fight Mikey at that weight was a little bit too much, and he just didn't have the strength. You know what I mean? He got hurt and dropped by shots that would normally never not hurt him. Yeah. So I think he's going to stay at 154.
What do you guys think about Lipinets in that against him?
I'll let you give your take, bro, and then I'll give you my little quick take on Lipinets.
Well, to me, Lipinets is a lot like Cavas Lucas, the Mean Machine. I mean, the European style, strong, tough. I definitely think Lipinets is a much stronger fighter than Mean Machine. He's been fighting at 147 and has, I mean, although there was a draw in that last fight he fought, which was, I don't think it was a draw. I think Lipinets pulled the fight out. He didn't look as devastating as he has in the past. But like I said, everybody's, under the circumstances, COVID, it has not been easy to train. It just hasn't been easy. So no excuses, but I think Lipinets and Crawford is a very competitive fight. It's a very competitive fight. Yeah, maybe Bud on paper will be favored, but Lipinets is a tough guy, man. And he keeps that chin down and he just keeps coming.
I think you make a good point right there, bro. But I got to differ with you a little bit. I thought Lipinets came up short on that Clayton fight. I thought Lipinets got hurt way too many times against a guy who really was not a hard-hitting guy. He kind of showed me a little bit that maybe he doesn't have the chin that a lot of people. It was funny because when I was talking to John Molina at that time when he was on the phone with you, the Gladiator, and I told him that, and I was like, I go back and I think when Johnny got hurt, when he hurt his back. And this fight, whatever happened with the weight, I don't know what the whole situation. You were there, but the bottom line is, it might have been a short night for Johnny. Don't get me wrong, Lipinets is strong in what he does, but I mean, he just doesn't show. He doesn't show like he's got a real tough chin to me and stuff, because he got hurt with some really, 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 not really well placed punches from a guy who's not considered a big puncher, and that's not gonna be favorable for him at the 147. Don't get me wrong, I'm not overly impressed with Crawford, but he can bang. And, that might just be, the one thing that Cavalucas was able to do against Crawford, other than be a little bit more accurate, was the fact he had a pretty sturdy chin. I don't see that in Lipinets.
Yeah. Well, you might be right. You might be right.
It could be another situation where, Crawford goes in there like what happens with Brooks, and he just puts this guy to sleep and stuff, and then he looks like he's a world beater. But in reality, you want to do something like that, you want to impress me, do it against Ugas. But we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Ugas is a big, strong 147 pounder, and I know he's a guy that doesn't shy away from any fights.
No. I was actually at the fight that you got me tickets for when Ugas won the fight against Sean Porter. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. Sean Porter lost that fight. Sean Porter got dropped in that fight. Even though I don't believe they even called it a knockdown.
They didn't call it a knockdown, but it was a clear knockdown.
Oh, it was a clear knockdown. I mean, it was just, but it is what it is. But for the most part, like I said, the welterweight division, there's so many options out there.
We completely, and this wasn't intentional, but we completely forgot, left out Mikey Garcia's name. Now, although I believe Mikey's better suited to fight at 140, he's made it very clear he's staying at 147. There's another guy that is in that division that,
and he's actually got a victory over Lipinets.
Yeah, he does. So
yeah. He beat Lipinets in a 12-round decision. So like I said, there's a lot of guys out there and stuff. And obviously the guys that we're passing over right now that we're not talking about, guys like Jamal James, who is a solid 147 pounder and stuff that's in the division. There's a lot of guys out there. You guys still got Maurice Hooker, even guys that I'm not really overly impressed with, guys like Omar Figueroa. But there's one fighter that, even though I think he's fought some decent fighters, he's really kind of getting overlooked. Maybe he's the new Danny Garcia. Maybe he's the guy that's got to come in a little bit different. And that's Virgil Ortiz Jr.
Virgil Ortiz is a guy man. I mean, he's got his recent win over Sammy Fuentes, where he really just put a beating on Sammy Fuentes.
But he hasn't moved up in the rankings. I mean, they still got this guy rated outside of the top 10. I mean, they show the guy no love. I mean, come on, when you got Omar Figueroa, who hasn't done anything, his biggest non-victory was against John Molina. We watched the fight. We know that what a robbery that was. John Molina's clearly won that fight. All the sports writers had him winning that fight. They handed Omar Figueroa that fight. And how do they reward him? By keeping him, and he's rated higher than Virgil Ortiz. I'll tell you right now, Virgil Ortiz in the ring against Omar Figueroa, it's a short night for Virgil Ortiz.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
He's a dangerous young fighter, man.
I mean, and he's a guy, though, I hate to say it, he's kind of on the outside looking in because of the affiliation. He's with Golden Boy, obviously. He's actually, we've said it.
There's a couple guys, because they've kind of been a little bit more outspoken, Virgil being one of them, and the other one is Jaron Enos. He's another guy that a lot of people, that are people, because he made some comments about Crawford. And he said, hey, listen, I'm ready to fight anybody. His ranking's actually going down. And this is a guy who's just completely annihilating people in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a whole new crop of guys coming in, that are out there. So why don't we go ahead and jump into another fight that was this Saturday. And that was Billy Joe Saunders and Martin Murray.
Friday. That one took place Friday, right?
Friday, yeah.
Friday.
Give us a little bit of take on that, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know, Eric. I'm not sure if you saw the fight. I watched it. Billy Joe Saunders defended his WBO 168-pound title against veteran Martin Murray. This was a fight that was supposed to take place 2 years ago. In fact, the press conferences 2 years ago, the fight was signed and something happened. I don't know what happened at the time. The fight didn't take place. Was that when Billy Joe got popped for that banned substance? Or I don't remember the specifics around it, but Martin Murray's a guy that, this was his 5th attempt at a world title. And, you could kind of see from the moment the first round ended, he just, he had 1 foot in the, who said it? Sergio Moro said he had 1 foot in the ring and 1 foot in retirement. I don't believe we'll see Martin Murray again. He just could not pull the trigger. He just did not let his hands go. And Billy Joe won an easy 12-round unanimous decision. I don't think I gave Martin Murray a round. And, right away, people want to say, well, he was dominated. Other fighters haven't been able to dominate him. We're talking about a 38-year-old Martin Murray. We're not talking about the Martin Murray 5 years ago that fought Golovkin. We're talking about a guy that's, probably was coaxed out of semi-retirement to fight this fight because it was a good payday. He was there at Wembley Stadium in London, on DAZN, the main event on DAZN. So it's probably a decent payday. But you said something to me the other day, brother, about Billy Joe Saunders in aspects to his fighting Canelo. I'm going to let you say what you had told me. I think you told me yesterday.
Yeah. So when you look at guys like Billy Joe Saunders and all of the talk that's been talked leading up, where he's at right now in his career, maybe he's got a little bit of that brashness from all his time he spent with guys like Tyson-Fury. I don't know, but I don't see an improvement in Billy Joe Saunders. This started back when he fought on that YouTube, farce that they had going on over there at the Staples Center. He just seemed like he was very disinterested in being a boxer. Even though he won every single round, I don't see a vast improvement in Billy Joe Saunders. And being that the 168-pound division is starting to really, really, really
heat up
a little bit, I don't see where Billy Joe Saunders is going to fit in this thing. If we had a Super Six right now with the reigning guys, we're talking David Benavidez, Canelo-Alverez, Callum Smith, amongst others. Billy Joe Saunders might not even get invited. And if he is invited, he's not going to go very far.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, the one who walks away with the 168-pound crown is another guy who's disrespected at 168 pounds, and that's David Benavidez. Say what you want to say about David. Maybe he likes the cocaine. Maybe he likes to do some stupid things at times. But at the end of the day, he's like Errol Spence Jr. and Sebastian Pandora. He's a fighter that was naturally blessed with God-given skills.
And size and power.
Absolutely.
He's a big 168 pounder.
I'm watching the Saunders Martin Murray highlights right now, and what I can take or out of this, there were so many times just in the highlights that I'm watching where literally Saunders could have, had he been a true boxer and wanted to end this, he could have actually probably done so, but he goes in for a couple of shots here and there and then pulls back out, and it's just like, you gotta have that dying blood or dying heart,
eye of the tiger, man. Eye of the tiger.
Yeah, there you go. You have to have the eye of the tiger for this, and he like goes in a little bit and then comes back out, and then he goes back. Especially when you got somebody. I'm looking at the 4th round right now, and got him on the ground twice, and you don't finish it. Come on, I mean,
yeah. And he fought, and Billy Joe fought very dirty in that fight. He constantly had his head up in Martin Murray's chin. He was hitting on the break. He was hitting behind the head. He was hitting low. I mean, he got warped several times for hitting low.
Well, we talked about that, bro, Mike, when Billy Joe Saunders, when he won that one fight, I can't remember who it was over, and they were talking about a possible Canelo fight. I mentioned too at that time, we were talking about how Billy Joe kind of been a little dirty in some of these fights, and it's gotten worse and worse. And that was one of the things I didn't really want to touch on that, but Billy Joe is he's not the fighter he was a couple years ago. Something changed.
Canelo would kill this guy.
Oh yeah.
Canelo, that wouldn't even be a fight.
The difference is, bro, I don't mean to cut you off, bro. The difference is when Canelo-Alverez, he's in the gym all the time. Billy Joe, when this fight's over, he's hanging out with Tyson-Fury, drinking Guinness. That's the difference, man.
Well, I tell you what, if that fight ever does come to fruition, which I don't think it will, but if that fight ever does, Canelo will make you pay for that dirty shit. If you try that, he will make you pay. Because that's one thing about that redhead Mexican. He does not put up with any dirty bullshit. No. And Canelo's a clean fighter. He doesn't fight. But I'll tell you this right now, if Billy Joe thinks he would get away with that head up in his chin and hitting low, I'll tell you, Canelo will make him pay. And I think you told me the other day, you said at one point, Billy Joe Saunders, you thought might have been the guy that could actually maybe even beat Canelo, but after seeing like how he's regressed and hasn't made any progress, I don't think he makes it to midway point with Canelo. I think Canelo overwhelms him.
Great point, bro.
Yeah, I'd give it 4 rounds.
Yeah,
pretty. I'm dead serious. I'd give it 4 rounds.
So enough of Billy Joe Saunders. Who cares? Let's move on to another one, Mike. Another snoozer that came out of the UK. Let's talk about Anthony Yarde. What a disappointment there.
Yeah, Yard loses the decision against Arthur. And I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, there was a lot of hype around Anthony Yard. I think primarily it's because he just physically, he looks like a specimen. I mean, the guy looks like Apollo Creed. I mean, he's just shredded. He's ripped. But, muscles don't always win fights. And, nope. He was pretty much outboxed and hurt several times by Kovalev, and he actually came back. What was it, the last round where he hurt Kovalev, and that was as close as he got to beating Kovalev. Was just a shot in the dark, never happened. And since then, he just really hasn't done much. And I think the luster's kind of off of Anthony Yarde a little bit. I think this was a fight he really needed to win to put himself back in the conversation at 175. And thank God he was fighting a guy like Arthur, not a guy like another Arthur Beterbiev or one of these killers at 175. I mean, that could get ugly.
Yeah, he's a guy that just there's been so much hype behind Yard over the recent years. And going into the Kovalev fight, there was so many people that felt that Kovalev was past his prime, that his loss to Andre Ward was pretty much the last diamond that he was going to lose. I'll tell you something right now. Anthony Yarde was never, ever, to me, a prime specimen of somebody who was going to be dominant in that division. And then he just showed it again. And once again, this goes back to Billy Joe Saunders, a guy who I just don't think really loves boxing that much, because if he did, he would correct some of those mistakes. Go back and look what Errol Spence did. He loves boxing. Even with what he was going through, he repaired some of those things and looked amazing. Yarde has done nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, turn the page on Anthony Yard.
Yeah.
Now, all right, guys, I'm gonna run over real quick and grab myself another refill because I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
Hey, Mike, I was gonna tell you real quick. Another fight that was on that card last night that I was really, really impressed with the guy, and I've seen him fight. I actually saw him. The last time I saw him fight was in his loss when he lost to Lee Selby and stuff, and that was Eduardo Ramirez. What do you think about Ramirez's performance against Miguel Flores?
Holy schmoly, that kid looked like, sometimes those fighters, they show up and you could just tell that they've put the work in. That kid looked strong, confident. The outcome of that fight after about the first minute and a half of the first round was never in question. It was a matter of how many rounds is it going to take him to dispatch of Miguel Flores, who's a tough guy, who went 12 rounds with Leo Santa Cruz, who I mean, is a great, strong, durable guy. And Ramirez just put the beating on him. I don't know if you saw that, but even prior to the right hook that ended the fight, man, he had a cut on his lip, reminiscent of the Tiriano Johnson cut that he sustained against Jamie-Munguia. Maybe not that bad, but man, that right hook was dynamite. And the way he set it up to just perfect. He timed, Flores was throwing a right hand and he just stepped back and bam. And here's a guy at 126, man, that, hey, don't sleep on this kid.
I tell you, I was so impressed with Ramirez's performance, especially against a guy like Miguel Flores. That maybe he may not be a household name, but this is a guy who just is rock hard and has so much talent himself. But I think the thing that really got me is I got kind of that punch that he landed on Flores that ended it. It was well thought out, and it brought me back to a moment, and that was Jones Zepeda in his bout when he knocked out Baranchek. Yeah. How well placed it was and how devastating. Now, it didn't have that devastating effect that Jones did.
No,
but
not
it was
that
right there. It was pretty close.
Yeah, like I said, Flores. I mean, that was a perfectly placed shot on the chin. I mean, that's highlight material right there.
Oh yeah,
that was probably. I think that probably was, for lack of a better term, the punch of the weekend of the week. If there a punch of the week, that was the punch of the week. I mean, there was nothing real significant landed in the Billy Joe Saunders fight, the Spence Garcia fight, Anthony Yard's fight, but that right hook, man, that Ramirez landed was the punch of the week, man.
Well, I think one of the things too is that it was such a great fight. It was actually, to me, honestly, probably one of the better fights of the night. I mean, all the fights are pretty entertaining.
I know. Could you imagine if that thing would have went 8, 9, 10 rounds? It would have been just a fight of the year candidate. But
major props to the PBC and their camera angles. You were right there, just like in the Spence Garcia fight where you heard those thumping punches. And I'm going to tell you right now, for two guys that are 126 pounds, Flores and Ramirez were bombing on each other. I mean, I was looking at these guys, looking at these punches. I was like, wow, 126 pounds better take a better look at Eduardo Ramirez, because like you said, another guy who went back and fixed some of the things and his mistakes that he made in the Lee Selby or the Claudio Moreno fight. Like I said, both fights where he lost decisions, but this is a guy who's just catapulted himself into that division again with this huge victory.
Eric, let me ask you something. Is that obviously, you're a boxing fan like me and AJ, like your brothers, but obviously it's safe to say that we watch more fights because you watch fights, but what did you think overall of the entire card, the undercard? Because I know that a lot of naysayers, a lot of PBC haters, or people that were really maybe on the other side of the street were really just saying, well, this undercard is shit. This isn't worth pay-per-view.
But it wasn't. There were some very good, very competitive fights. I heard you guys a couple of weeks back, after the Tyson fight, saying, hey, if this is a pay-per-view that you guys should actually be paying for.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I watched all the prelims, and then of course I watched the fights as well. It was amazing. That's a good card. That is, and PBC is actually doing something really, really good right now. And especially right now with everybody in the pandemic and this hoax. But anyways, while everybody's at the house, can't really do a whole lot. This is the prime opportunity to allow people to get back into the boxing scene. And I think PBC is doing the right thing.
You're right. Go ahead, AJ.
Oh no, go ahead, bro.
No, what I wanted to say was, sometimes you can equate this pretty much to any sport. You could say football, you could say baseball, you could say sometimes what's supposed to be so good on paper doesn't turn out that way.
Mhm.
I mean, we could go back just a few weeks ago with the Teofimo Lopez Lomachenko fight. On paper, that fight was supposed to be amazing. On paper, the Bud Crawford Brook fight was supposed to be amazing, and neither fight lived up to the hype. Sometimes people get so caught up in the participants and what they assume is supposed to happen that they don't live in the moment. They don't enjoy it. They don't
Yeah.
enjoy what's in front of them. And sometimes two guys that maybe you've in passing have heard one of the two combatants and you really don't know much about their opponent, doesn't mean it's not going to be a great fight. Case in point, there was a couple fights on this card. The one they call him Canalito, who fought earlier on the card. He fought a good 10-round fight, and that was a fight that most people didn't tune in the card, didn't know who those guys were. It turned out to be a really, really competitive fight. The 4 rounds that we got with Flores and Ramirez was a very good fight. And even though Fundora won the fight devastating in 2 rounds, it was a good 2 rounds. It was like, well, hey, I'm glad I was there to see, because what that's going to do, I mean, look at these fights are put together for a reason. This is a business. They're there to show people this is the next crop. Who out there that's a real boxing fan is not excited to see Ramirez and Fundora's next fights? I know I am. I can't fucking wait to see what those guys come up with next.
I'm doing my reindeer ears, dude. Look. Hey,
think about that. Think about that.
I completely agree with you, bro. And I'm going to even touch another base. It shows that the people in the PBCs has true matchmakers. When a matchmaker puts together a proposed bout, they're looking at not just who's the household name, but how to put together a competitive bout. And say what you want. Even in the short fights like the Pandora and others, they were all very well placed, all very competitive, and it turned out to be a very entertaining night.
I mean, the Ramirez-Flores fight, it lasted 4 rounds, but it was competitive, exciting. I mean, they were standing toe-to-toe trading. There was neither guy took a backward step. I mean, I'd rather have 4 rounds of that than 12 rounds of, a lackluster, boring Billy Joe Saunders kind of fight, where I'm just like, Jesus, or Anthony Yard, who fought yesterday as well. You're like, man, I mean, now, like we said it, the matchmakers at PBC did a great thing, because Eric, AJ, I can't wait to see where Fundora goes next.
Yeah,
I think they're going to move him up. Maybe he does fight Cota. Maybe Cota, because I guess Cota tested positive. Maybe they make that fight in the spring, early part of 2021. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Fundora could probably jump right back in the ring in January. I mean, the kid's in shape. I mean, he only had a fight of 4.5 minutes. Ramirez too, dude. Let's see him. I can't wait.
Yeah, and I think that oh, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What I was going to say is that the difference is with PBC versus some of these others that are out there. It seems like PBC likes boxing. You know what I mean? They're not just trying to put the biggest money person here with this other. Granted, it's a business, but they're trying to give something to us, the fans, as well. The true boxing fans that want to see a good match, and all the way from the undercard up to the main event. So, I mean, that's kind of nice for PBC, PBC to do that.
That's a great point, Eric.
I'm gonna tell you something, bro. This is something that, and there's a lot of people in this game that have YouTube channels, or people that are ambassadors for the sport and do a job to promote the fight. A lot of people do not give PBC the credit they deserve for developing fighters. Bob Arum has always been, and just as recently as a few weeks ago, I was watching some videos of people saying Top Rank is the king when it comes to developing fighters, blah, blah, blah. They're completely overlooking Golden Boy. They're completely overlooking PBC. Case in point, the development of Sebastian Fundora. Okay. Yeah. He's been on almost every PBC card for the last 2 years. He fought on the undercard of, I believe, Spence Porter. He fought on the undercard of Leo Santa Cruz versus
Tank Davis.
No, not Tank Davis. No, the one where Johnny fought Omar Figueroa, the fight at Microsoft. He was on that card as well.
Yeah.
Vito Melnicki, another young kid coming up. The other kid, the Lithuanian kid, the 147 pounder, looks like Triple G, begins with an S. His name escapes me right now. But these, like I said, these are guys that they're developing. They're developing these guys, and they're moving them along. I mean, But like I said, for some reason, Top Rank gets way too much credit for developing some of these younger fighters. And I recently as a month ago, watching the fights from the bubble, there was a couple of newer pros that fought on at the MGM Grand on ESPN, and these were guys that were like having their third and fourth fights, and they were completely put in there with
Fillers,
matches, just fillers, overmatched. They didn't particularly look good, and I'm thinking the kid Grant, who also won a fight on this card the other day, the kid, the Olympian from where's he from? He's from the same place that Winky Wright's from. Anyways, Grant, he's training with Derek James. He's another good up and coming guy with a good amateur background that's coming up. So, you have to develop these guys. You have to develop. It's like in football. You might be beating a team 48-0, but you know what though? You don't need to keep your starters in trash time in the fourth quarter. What's the sole purpose of putting in your backups? I don't care if it's your quarterback, running back, whatever. You got to get them some experience. You got to get them some playing time. You got to get the people to see them. I mean,
you're absolutely right, and I think PBC is absolutely being overlooked. Top Rank is always going to keep that shine. They're going to always kind of bring back, the nostalgia, the Tommy Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard. Let's be honest here, people. The reason why PBC is doing what they're doing, because they understand the guys on top aren't going to remain on top forever. There's a thing called father time. And the problem is that Top Rank's not doing that. Right now, they're focusing too much on Terrence Bud-Crawford, amongst others. But for the overall card, I think PBC, once again, exhibited their professionalism, their very educated choices in matchmaking, with exception to one fight. And it was a fight I was kind of missing it. It was slipping in my mind. But that was the only black eye on the entire night that I felt. And that was the horrible decision of Burley Brooks over Marco Delgado. That was just terrible.
Yeah, I'll admit I missed that fight.
But it was just to see a guy get dropped, to see a guy in Burley Brooks, he gets dropped, he gets points deducted in the fifth and sixth for low blows, and to still win a fight over a guy who they said so many times on there wasn't brought there to win.
Yeah.
Kid comes there and he wins this fight, and wow,
they take it from him. Boxing got it wrong again, huh?
but just one. Let's go back to Top Rank. I mean, it was like one after another after another.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was an exciting night of boxing. And I'm glad I got to share it with my brothers again, and I'm doing it again right here. Just like I said, I mean, for the people out there that don't know who we are, we're three guys that have done boxing in our lives. We've been around boxing into our lives. We come from a boxing family, but we understand that in order to really, really, really be an ambassador for this sport, you have to understand this sport. You have to respect this sport, and boxing's about respect.
Yes.
Yeah. And not only that, if you've never been hit in the face,
and we've all been hit in the face.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true.
Why don't we go ahead and bounce, guys? We got a little bit of time here and stuff. And since we got our brother Eric, who's zooming in from Oregon, why don't we talk a little bit about, we've kind of touched on this a little bit in the past. Let's talk a little bit about the situation that's going on right now. I know for me and my brother Mike right here, Mighty Mike, we're getting ready to experience something pretty severe here starting Monday with this extreme lockdown. Eric,
I think it starts tonight in some areas. I heard tonight at 9:00. It's
But my brother Eric, he owns a very successful escape room up in Oregon called Cinescapes that he really put his heart and soul in. And if you're ever in Oregon, and if we get past the stuff, you really got to visit it. But I'm going to let him go ahead and talk about a little bit how it's affected him as a business owner from Oregon. So here's my brother Eric Mindiola.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so the long and short of it, we've just been shut down since March. We tried to reopen in July for a couple of months, a couple of weeks. But we immediately got contacted by the state telling us, that we needed to shut down or, risk being fined $5,000 a day, up to $70,000 if we don't shut our doors, which is absolutely just ridiculous. We got a yoga studio right next door to us. They've got 40 people in it, and that's okay. But I can't have, 10 to 20 people in my escape room. It's absolutely ridiculous. But all that to be said, I mean, people I think are getting tired. People are just they're done with it. There's protests all over the place. I just saw a video of Manhattan, New York, thousands of people just saying, screw it. We're not listening to you. And I personally, I think that's what needs to happen. I think the people of America need to stand up and just, disregard these unlawful orders. It's unconstitutional. So I am.
They're not enforceable. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, they're telling people you can only be in your car or, going to an essential place of business or whatever. And for my industry, we just got emailed a letter yesterday, and I actually have to print this letter out and carry it with me at all times because of the impending new lockdown. We're considered an essential business. Okay, real estate. So I have to actually carry this letter with me. So if for some reason somebody pulls me over, a cop, well, what are you doing out? I can show the letter and go, look, I'm part of an essential industry, which is, I don't know how it's essential. I mean,
part of that is, quite honestly, for a police officer to pull you over, and there's not an actual law against you actually being out. There is not a law. There is a guideline or a mandate from the governor, but it's not a law. So that is completely and totally unconstitutional. So I'm a veteran, and you know what? Anybody out there watching, just start getting ready, guys, because you know what? Eventually, everybody's just going to have to say, forget it. Meet up in big giant groups of 100 or 200 with no masks and go into these big box stores. Just walk in, and with everybody not wearing masks, and they're not going to get everybody out of there. We need to protest something. But as far as the small businesses go, it's really quite sad when you've got malls that are in Oregon here that are still open. You've got Walmart has 800 people in it. You got all these big giant stores open, but us small business people, we can't get open.
That's actually a great point, Eric. And it's I don't mean to cut you off on there, but it's to me it's just such an atrocity when you think they're going to close a church down that might have 40 people, or compared to, let's say, Target that's got a couple hundred people. The bottom line is there's a bigger, deeper, darker, more insidious message here that I think people need to really, really look at. Me being a person who's a government employee but has 35 years in the medical industry knows a lot about this. But I'm going to say something right now. As a human being, people have gotten more health conscious. I know I'm very health conscious. My brothers are both very health conscious. One of the things that you do when you go to the grocery store and you grab a new item off of the shelf, you turn it around, you look at the ingredients. All I'm going to tell you, people, look at the ingredients before you ingest it.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Hey, I wanted to say something on this. I know that hypocrisy comes to mind when, obviously we know what happened out here in California with the governors and everybody getting caught at these fancy restaurants, maskless, sitting, nut to butt with people that they're not even in their immediate family. But there was a situation that took place this weekend in a place called Pineapple Grill in Sherman Oaks, California. I don't know if you guys saw it. The girl,
I saw the one with the
girl, Marsden is her name. And she literally, they shut her down. She spent all this time and effort and money constructing her outdoor patio, and it was beautiful. She had lights up and easy ups and everything, socially distanced heaters and all that for nighttime dining. They closed her down in literally a spitting distance away. I mean, you could spit a loogie from her distance to where a movie production company set up a 200 capacity outdoor catering facility, temporary facility. It looked identical. White easy ups, tables, lights. She can't open her business for people, her regular patrons.
But a movie theater.
But a movie company can do that. Now, what's essential about filming a TV show or a movie? I mean, people got to eat, right? People got to eat and socialize and be out of the house. I mean, I was talking to my neighbor today, and his daughter was in Victorville, California this weekend, which is about an hour away from me. And it's in the high desert area, and they had a softball tournament there. And I says, oh, they're still playing. He says, yeah, well, Victorville's kind of letting them play, but these kids need it. These are kids, 11, 12, 13-year-old kids that are, man, so they can't just be, they can't just be stay cooped up in their house, man, on the damn computer screens all day. Kids got to be able to get out and interact.
I was saying this to my wife, and I was telling her and stuff, because there are people out there that have long-term conditions and stuff like this. But the bottom line is, when you're looking at an illness that it's already been proven that it's got a 99.9% recovery percentage. So you have to ask yourself, with the vaccines and stuff, you got to understand, when you put a vaccine in your body, you never know how it's going to turn out. But there's one thing that really, really disturbs me. So the other day I was watching this movie with my wife called Containment. And there was a part in the movie. It was called Contagion. And at the end of the movie, one of the biologists takes the actual disease, takes it into this cold storage, and places it into a cold storage locker with SARS and H1N1 and all these other ones, and walks out. The problem is they're talking about this cold storage. Let me tell you something right now. When you're dealing with a vaccine, you're talking about something that is combined with proteins. Okay. The proteins are the preserved base that sustain it so that it has an active, some type of a relationship with your internal system. When you're talking about harboring something at a specific degree, at a cold frost at minus 70 and stuff, you're not preserving the proteins. You're preserving the virus.
The virus, yeah.
Think about it, people. I had this conversation with numerous medical directors that are friends of mine, not to mention microbiologists and others, people that work for the CDC. And I'm telling you something right now, you guys, you have to look at something like that and what the push is. And in sports, it's affecting everybody. Let me tell you right now, this is the best thing for bookies. I'm going to tell you why. You got a football team that's getting ready to go out. Super Bowl time. You got the star quarterback. Let's say it's, the kid from Kansas City. And they want to make sure that Kansas City, who's coming in the betting favorite, is going to lose this game. Well, guess who just got diagnosed with COVID-19 5 minutes before the game?
Yeah.
Boom.
It's happening all the time. These games are getting constantly canceled, rescheduled. I think USC's playing right now. I believe that, and this is a rarity for a college team to play on a Sunday. They're playing right now, I believe, in the state of Washington because California, because of Newsom, no close contact, physical sports, whatever. So they had to move the game to Sunday. It is, man. This whole thing is just a.
Oh, I had one other thing I want to say before we close out. Now,
hold on. I got something too.
Oh, yeah, but I was going to say that Newsom seeing his requirements. There's one thing. We're musicians. I'm a musician. My brother Mike's a musician. My brother Eric's a singer too. He's he was actually our punk singer before he got into country western, but that's the military's fault. That's a whole nother thing. But the point I was going to say was the no singing clause. I'm like, what the hell is it's unity, people that are musicians. It's why bands and learning how to play an instrument are being taken daily out of public schools and replaced with electronic aspects, because it's a known fact that musicians, they think.
They're critical thinkers.
We're creative people. We're not just going to settle. If you don't believe me, sit down with my guitarist, Donnie Smith. Believe me, there's been no producer, I don't care how many Grammys you got on your shelves, that's going to tell him something that this is the sound you need when he knows the sound he wants.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
So, well, that could be another reason why they're shutting all of our escape rooms down too. Our rooms actually encourage critical thinking,
problem solving,
survival.
Even though it's on a like a fantasy type level or like a role play, but it's. Hey, I have to think. I've got time to get it out of this escape room. I got to use a part of brain that's just sitting dormant when you're just watching TV.
Yeah. So with that, guys, I do want to. I've got one little quick announcement for you guys. Hopefully, you guys give me just a second here.
Sure, absolutely, bro.
Yeah.
Cinescapes, we're going to be going virtual reality as well. So I'll be working this next couple of weeks to actually get the rooms completely done in virtual reality. So we're going to actually open up our market from just not the Portland, Oregon area, but it's going to be nationwide and worldwide. So you're actually going to be able to come to my escape room.
It's awesome.
Virtually. So yeah, it's going to be, and we've got some great rooms. So
hey, if they could do a Christmas party, virtual Christmas party, I'm believe me, in my work, if they invite me to a Christmas party, I'm not going virtual, but I'll do an escape room because I tell you right now, it's amazing. It's amazing. I tell you what I want to do. I want to do virtual happy hour. Sit around, get smashed drunk. There we go. So I see we do that next time. But with that said, I want to thank my brother Eric from Oregon. I love you, bro. I miss you. I can't wait to see you.
I love you. I miss you.
And don't worry about this lockdown. Like I said, we always got our plan B, and I'm not worried about it because at the end of the days, we're the three Mindiola brothers, and believe me, nothing's gonna stop us. All right.
And this episode of Enter the Ring Live was brought to you by Cinescapes and Jack Daniels, and or whatever Eric has in his
Sour Patch Kids. No,
it's
but
plenty of whiskey. So thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it,
brother. I can't wait. I can't wait till we're all together drinking a nice Guinness. With that said, Mike, why don't you go ahead and take us out?
That's it, everybody. We'll see. Thank you for tuning in to Enter the Ring Live for Sunday, December the 6th, 2020. I keep saying that. We will be back Tuesday with a little bit more follow-up with a preview of the fights coming up this coming weekend. With that said, I'm Mighty Mike.
I'm AJ Rage.
And I'm Eric the Red.